Welcome to WWETV now, and I am your host, Miss Goldie, filming live from YouTube Space, New York, in the wonderful presidential office. And right now, I have my wonderful guest, longtime friend and music mentor, Mr. Lawrence Wise Mcgriff.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm blessed.
Thank you for being a guest on the Miss Goldie to You show in WWETV. It's always my pleasure to sit down with you to get a chance to talk to you. I know you're a very, very busy individual. You have a lot of jobs and a lot of things you work on, and I would love to get into that with you. But I just want to start off by letting the people know where you came from.
Born and raised in South Jamaica, Queens.
South Jamaica, Queens. And growing up in South Jamaica, Queens, in the era that you came up in, South Jamaica, Queens was more of a prominent part of New York. People had a couple of dollars if you lived over in Queens. So what was that like for you growing up in Queens, and who were your mentors?
Growing up in Queens was great. You know, I grew up inside of a household. I'm the baby of 12. You know, now both parents, they was at home. And my mentors was actually my uncle and my brother, as well as the other older fellas from out the neighborhood.
And when you say the older fellas from out the neighborhood, I would say, you know, I don't want to give away our ages, but back then, the people in our neighborhood were our kings and queens. They were our role models, and they were the people that we looked up to. Who would you say was some of your role models and influences?
My Uncle Kenneth Mcgriff, my brother Gerald Miller, my mentors to this day, Lance and Tar Furtado, the King of Kings, Luke Steffen. Then you had other influences, Fat Cat and Corley.
Okay, and right now I know that you are a very important person, and you have actually a prominent position in the music industry and a lot of respect in the music industry as well as the streets. But you were faced with some trouble some time ago, and God gave you, I would say God gave you a second opportunity, in which you've done well with the second opportunity. But just can you elaborate a little bit on what it was like for you going through that process and how you made it out?
Growing up, I had chose to make the wrong decisions by hanging around the wrong crowd, and I had made the wrong choices on my own accord. And in doing so, it led me to a sentence of 52 years, of which I served 16. I was able to get a time cut on the grounds that the sentence wasn't legal. So they had overturned the sentence. They had gave me 10 years to life, and I had served 16. Upon my release, I started working on the very first day that I got out. I went in February 17th, 1987. I was released February 14th, 2003. And I'm grateful to my Uncle Kenneth Supreme, you know, for having means of support there waiting for me. So I will forever be grateful to Irvin Chris Gotti for the opportunity.
And right now, when you mention your uncle, Supreme Mcgriff, you're currently working on something to also possibly get him released from prison, and tell us about that.
I don't want to take credit for doing something that he has done for himself. I didn't have no parts in it outside of having people sign a petition. He had took it upon himself to write a letter, you know, to President Barack Obama in hopes of having him grant some type of reprieve, because during his trial, he wasn't able to speak on his own behalf. His lawyer told him that he didn't feel that it would be deemed necessary to have him testify on his own behalf. And that right there, I felt that that's against the law. Because now, how can you have a day of judgment and you weren't even called upon to be judged?
Right. And back then, in the era, I would guess you would say the Reagan era, the Mayor Giuliani, when he was, I guess, the district attorney, and they really went hard with incarcerating people for things like drug offenses, or, you know, making them into such things like they were mob or they are cartel. And they really unfairly sentenced a lot of, I would say, African American men to, I mean, people that murder people don't get the sentences.
He was actually charged for a conspiracy to commit murder. He does not have a violent record. He has not been a violent individual. And those that actually committed the murder pled guilty for whatever reason. And then like they in turn said that he told them to do it. They are actually home. He has life without parole. So how can you take someone that actually committed murder, that already had a criminal history, and just because I say that, Goldie told me to do it, that doesn't make it so.
Right.
I personally feel that he's just guilty of actually having a bad past. Mm-hmm. and that like the modern day society, they don't want to look at the good that he has tried to do since then. They always bring up things of the 80s, but what about what he has done since then?
And recently on my radio show, I've been doing a series called There's Life After Prison, because you have some people that get felonies, that go to prison, and they're not able to get their life back together because of these felonies and because of their prison time and because of their crime. And then you very well have people who go to jail, serve their time, and they get out and they do just great things, such as yourself. So tell us about some of the things you have been doing since you've been released from prison, and some of the organizations and things that you do for the community.
Since my release, I had to come home with a game plan, and my plan was I didn't want to return back to prison. So in order for me not to return, I had to remove myself from negative people, places, and things, and try to instill myself amongst those that are positive, those that are striving to do better. I don't feel that I'm better than anybody from my old neighborhood. I just feel that I have matured a little bit more to know that I don't want to be succumbed to just stay there.
Right.
And since I've been out, through the grace of God, my pastor Floyd Flake and a couple other ministers that have guided me along the way, Dr. Arlie Griffin, Bishop T.D. Jakes, Reverend Al Sharpton.
So you would definitely give honor to God.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For your life and the path that it is on now, and it was definitely a blessing to you and to others that the system didn't get to stick you with that 52 years. And I was just actually reading transcripts from your court, and it was just so amazing to see that they actually allowed someone an honest day in court, and they actually saw where they made a mistake in, even though you served 6 years past the time, but they made a mistake and they corrected it and they gave you your life back. And
I had to pay for that though. I had served the extra 6 years because the parole board, they had denied me on the grounds of the nature of the instant offense. Once you were charged with something, that charge will never change.
Right.
I mean, like that, the Bible says, for all have sinned. Mm-hmm. So that means that you can't judge me for my sins. Judge me for how did I try to correct my sin. If I continue with the same sin, then when I get to the gate and when I try to highlight the good brother Peter, and when Pete laughed at me, then I can't take it personal. But if I try to change, then I know that Jesus, he had died for my sins. So now by all means, open up the gates and let me in.
Right. And I don't think that we should be judged on our past, especially if we have made amends, if we have repented, if we have done things to justify or, correct the things that we've done in our past. And I'm glad that you shared that with me. I hope you're still my friend. And just a quick question. What is your views about the presidential election and the candidates that we have to choose from?
Donald Trump is actually trying to run because he done been through so many type of financial schemes, scams, saying that he's trying to correct it. So he feel that if he get inside position, anything that he has ever done that was bad, he can actually try to clean it up. And I commend Hilary for, first of all, being a woman that's actually making her mark. I mean, she's the second female to publicly run. When I was younger, I wasn't old enough to vote for Shirley Chisholm, but that was the first person to actually run as far as women. So now for me to have the opportunity of, possibly seeing Hillary get in office, she definitely got my vote.
And I'm glad you said that because she definitely has my vote too. I feel as if anyone who could run a household, have a husband, go through a presidential election, win, go through a scandal, and this lady never, like, you never seen her.
I gotta vote for Hillary because Hillary reminds me of the average black woman from the hood that was going through some issues with their husband. You say, but however, she still chose to stand by her man.
Yes.
So that lets me know that what if she gets this opposition, regardless of what the United States has done, she's willing to stand by her country to
Right.
try to help us overcome, to do the right thing.
I believe that as well. And I'm glad you looked at it like that because people have just given up on the election because it's not the two candidates that they would love to see in office. But if you could pick your perfect presidential candidate, who would it be?
Michelle Obama.
Yeah, so next time we would love for Michelle Obama to run for president. I feel like they should have just flipped the White House and stayed, like, squatters' rights or something.
Yeah, because I mean, like, that we've been ambushed before. We had George Bush Sr. and then we had his son. So, now we done had like ambush back to back. So for them to try to discredit Barack was given decades upon decades of so many other shams that now once you put a person of color, you try to persecute him. You see, because he was the first one to actually do what the average black person did, apply for some credit. And so now he actually had the audacity to obtain credit to try to help us get out of debt. So now for those that feel that Barack had kept us like deeper in debt, he was the first one to actually try to help us get out. He didn't just stand up for black people, but he had gave all people in general like the type of hope that they too can become some positive as long as they apply themselves.
Right. And that's what I feel by us having a black president, and people, want to know why we're so excited about having a black president. Not that I don't like the other presidents that we had, but it just lets us know as people that we are not limited to certain things. We have billionaires, that's African Americans, millionaires. We have TV producers, we have movie writers, we have all kind of things. So the ceiling that was once over us is not really there if you don't want it to be there, because you can work to achieve to be whoever you want to be.
I didn't have no choice the first time to actually vote for Barack because he looked like me. He looked like he came from the same background that I did. I mean, like the man had admitted to whatever it was that he did wrong. So before y'all could say, well, he did this, he already told you. Okay, so let's move forward. Don't worry about what I did then. This is what I'm doing now.
I really wish we could have our president back for 16 more years. But they sure turned that man's hair from black to silver. He just looks 40 years older now, and God bless America. And on to some other subjects. Right now, you are currently, what is your title in the music industry?
I'm the director of marketing for Def Jam. I'm the vice president of talent for All Def Digital.
Amazing.